Hey, Horse Center fans. Matt and I are back with another Horse Center edition, and this time it's all about the Preakness, Matt.
We got everything you need to know, folks, for the Preakness. We're going to go through the whole field, give you a pace projector, our top four picks, and then we'll give you the trifecta.
Let's hit this big, Matt. I'm talking real big. Watch it all right now on Horse Center. Welcome to another edition of Horse Center, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the outstanding pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm good, Brian. How are you? I'm ready to talk about the Preakness, hoping that all the Derby scuttlebutt is dying down.
Derby scuttlebutt behind us, Matt. Let's go to the middle jewel. Preakness is always one of my favorite races of the year, Matt. Hey, looking at the top 3-year-olds in the country, the Preakness really doesn't include a lot of them. I think that'll change a little bit with the running of Saturday's race, but we don't have the stars. We don't have the Derby winner, or whichever horse you want to call the first under the wire, or the horse that got put up. We don't have the third place finisher, the horse that got placed second. We don't have the fourth place finisher, the horse that got placed third. It's been a long time since that's happened, Matt, but what we do have is a pretty wide open field of 13 for the Preakness. Let's start talking about the horses, Matt. Number one, a horse that you've liked quite a bit over the months, War Will, 4-1.
On the rail again, Brian. I don't think that makes a big difference, especially at Pimlico, where it's okay to be on the rail. I'm going to give him one more chance, Brian Zipsy, and I feel that we could make that comment about a number of horses in this field, but I'm going to give War of Will one more chance. I think that he had a lot of run in the Derby, and obviously we know what happened coming down the stretch. I think he can be part of the top 3 coming down the stretch. And as we know, Brian, historically, it is the Derby horses who have done best in the Preakness.
They have done best in the Preakness more years than not, Matt, but this is a very different kind of year with all these horses coming into the Preakness without having run in the Derby, and just a handful and none of the top runners from the Derby coming here. So things could change. Yeah, post positions aren't as important in the Preakness. We talk about it much less than we talk about the 20-horse field in the Kentucky Derby. It's a straightaway down the stretch at Pimlico, unlike Kentucky, where Churchill Downs, where they have to kind of come over into the home stretch there. Still, having said that, I'm not crazy for the one hole. I think it's a little unlucky that War Will got it both in the Derby and now in the Preakness. I don't think he really wants to be on the lead. I think he wants to stalk like he did in the Derby. So I don't love the post for him. I also don't love the odds. I think he will be the second choice in here, as the morning line suggested, 4-1. Having said that, he certainly got a shot. He ran a very good race in the Kentucky Derby and could have been much closer than the 4.5 lengths if he wasn't bothered in the coming into the stretch of the Derby. Certainly one of the ones to beat, Matt, but I'm not excited about betting him as a betting prospect at 4-1 coming from the rail. Number 2, I'm a little bit more excited about, especially if the morning line holds. That's Bourbon War, who's rallied nicely. 3 races down in Florida. He's 12-1 on the morning line, Matt.
Yeah, 12-1 would be a generous and certainly odds with a lot of value for Bourbon War. I'm not sure that we'll get that on there, but he is going to be good odds. I'm a little curious about the move. Mark Hennig is putting blinkers on Bourbon War in there, and I just assume that they discovered some stuff and they've been experimenting with it in the morning. So it's not going to be a completely a cold move for the horse. We certainly love what his second place performance in the Fountain of Youth, and that he was 4th in the Florida Derby when getting a less favorable pace. And as we know, the Florida Derby has been sort of a key race along the Derby Trail and in the Kentucky Derby. So there's a lot to like about Bourbon War.
Yeah, and especially this year, Matt, that Florida Derby with Code of Honor and, of course, Maximum Security running so well. There is a lot to like Bourbon War. He's fresh, and I like his races in Florida. Mile 3/16 now at Pimlico. I think he's a horse really to watch out for in here. Number 3, Matt, is also 12-1 on the morning line. His name is Warrior's Charge. He's never run in a stakes race, Matt. It took him a while to break his maiden, but his last 2 races, a maiden and an allowance at Oaklawn Park, were very impressive wins.
Yeah, put together a couple of front end big length victories at Oaklawn Park for Brad Cox in there, and it certainly seems like he will be a factor on what goes on in the early part of this race. 12-1 isn't a price good enough for me to want to bet on that horse.
Yeah, I think it probably will be a little too much too soon for Warrior's Charge. We should mention that his ownership group supplemented him for $150,000. That's a big bet they're putting on him. I think part of it is they thought the Preakness was coming up a little bit lighter in quality. But having said that, this is a huge jump up in class for a horse that's had things his own way the last 2 times. I'm going to need to see it here, so he's not going to be on my tickets as well, Matt. Number 4 is the morning line favorite. He actually went off the favorite in the Kentucky Derby. Didn't run badly. Improbable was 5th. He got moved up to 4th. 5-2, he gets Mike Smith in the irons, and that's part of maybe the odds.
Yeah, if you're lucky, maybe you'll get 5-1. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes off at a shorter price than that. And I want absolutely no part of Improbable in the win spot at those kind of odds. Lots of excuses. Frankly, Brian, I'm getting tired of all of the excuses that have been made for Improbable. Although I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes second, or if he finishes third, or if he finishes 4th again. But I can't bet him. I can't bet him to win at the kind of odds that he's going to be. And Mike Smith is only going to make those odds shorter and shorter.
Yeah, 5-2. 5-2 might be about right for Improbable in here with Mike Smith aboard. His Derby wasn't bad at all, but it wasn't the type of performance that scares anyone away. I also say he got slopped the last 2 times. Maybe he's going to do a little bit better on a fast track. We'll see. We're expecting a fast track at this point, but I'm with you. I think this is a wide open race, and in a wide open race, I usually look for odds, Matt, and we're not going to find it on the 4 Improbable. The 5 Owendale, 10-1 on the morning line. Now, Owendale, 3 races back, won a nice allowance race at Fairgrounds. Then he came back in the Risen Star, really didn't do much at all. Shuffled back maybe a little early, but never fired. But then he sure did fire in the Lexington Stakes over another Twist of Fate, Swayno. Pretty decent field where he just swooped the field on the outside. Son of Into Mischief, trained by Brad Cox. Interesting at 10-1.
I agree. Certainly interesting, and made a good move to score an impressive victory in Lexington. And as you listed some of them, it was a pretty decent field. There were several horses in there trying to get Derby points at the last minute. I'm sure Brad Cox was not upset that ownership group of Warrior's Charge, who he also trains, wanted to put that horse into the Preakness to ensure a strong pace for Owendale to run into.
Yeah, and Florent Giroux said he got him to relax last time, and that was the key, because it was a strong performance. A mile and a 16th versus a mile and 3/16 here. But if there's a good pace, and again, he can be relaxed early, I think he's a talented enough horse to make some real noise here in the Preakness. I can't say the same about D. Wayne Lucas's entrance, the number 6, Market King. 30-1 on the morning line, Matt. Speed, but that's about all I see.
Speed, that's for sure. He's only got a maiden win to his credit, although he did finish 3rd in one of the divisions of the Rebel.
3rd, but a well-beaten 3rd. I'm going to pass on Market King. Number 7 is Always Mining. Now, Always Mining is the local horse. He's been just tearing them up at Laurel Park, about a half an hour away from Pimlico. He's actually 8-1 for trainer Kelly Rubley, who will have her first Preakness horse. 8-1 on the morning line. I think that is a little bit off. I think he'll be lower than that. I think he'll be the third betting choice, Matt.
I agree with you there, Brian. 8-1. I would be very, very excited. The horse has won 6 races in a row, runs on the front end, probably the quality, classiest speed in the race. But again, he seems like he's going to be contested in there. I like the horse in here. And as I was saying, if he did go off at 8-1, I'd really, really like him. But certainly interesting to see what he can do in here.
Yeah, now there are other good speed horses in there. Always Mining did show the ability to come from just off the pace last time, where he stalked and pounced and won for absolute fun. He's won 6 in a row, 5 straight stakes. He did beat win several starts back as well on that resume. So clearly a nice horse, clearly coming into the Preakness the right way. It's just class and distance and more pressure early. A lot of questions, but a dangerous local horse to be sure. Number 8, Matt, is Signalman, and I was a little surprised to see 30-1 on the morning line on Kenny McPeek's runner.
That is for sure, Brian, and fans of HorseCenter know that Signalman is a horse that I have liked in the past, and at 30-1, I definitely like Signalman in here. Remember, last time he ran, he was 3rd in the Bluegrass, certainly on a day when the track was not playing to his favor. And his rider, I think, put a little pressure on him to stay a little closer to the pace because of the way the track had been playing. The Preakness historically is a race where sometimes deep closers make big runs at the end to get into the exotics, and I'd like Signalman to do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's a deep closer. He kind of bounces back and forth between closer to the pace and farther from the pace, so we're not sure. Probably he'll be certainly in the second half early, and there's nothing on his PPs to tell me he's fast enough to make a real dent in the Preakness. But on the other hand, again, a wide open race with no real standouts as bombs go. He's interesting. Number 9 is Bodie Express, the maiden. He was 2nd in the Florida Derby. He was one of those horses bothered by the maximum securities move in the Kentucky Derby. But still, he's a maiden, 20-1, lower than Signalman. He had speed, but I'm not sure why he's lower than Signalman on the morning line.
I agree with that, 20-1. I think he's going to end up more than that. If he doesn't, he should be. He's going to come out of this race maiden again, and later in the summer they'll find a spot for him to get his second win. I'll pass.
Or his first win, even.
Yes, sorry, Ryan. Yes.
Number 10 is Everfast, the longest shot on the board, 50-1, late addition for trainer Dale Romans. Matt, he's had his chances. He was actually 2nd as a long shot a few races ago down in the Holy Bull, but I think that race has proven weaker of all the Florida races. That's about all I have to say about Everfast. I don't see it in here.
Yeah, I don't see it either. He was 128-1 when he finished 2nd in there. I can't see him pulling another bombs away in here.
Okay, number 11 is Laughing Fox, trained by Steve Asmussen. Who's kind of a hot trainer. 20-1 on the morning line, coming off a win in the inaugural edition of the Oaklawn Invitational. That was Kentucky Derby Day just 2 weeks ago. Matt, if you look at his form this year, going 2 turns, looks pretty good.
And he sure seems to be a horse that is improving. Before he won that Oaklawn Invitational at Oaklawn Park to get a win in your in spot into the Preakness, he was 4th in the Arkansas Derby, and it was a very good edition of the Arkansas Derby. 20-1 on the morning line. I guess he could be close to that. And you gotta like those odds. And Brian, whose barn is hotter right now than Steve Asmussen's?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Matt. Laughing Fox at 20-1 is interesting to me. It was only a length behind the Derby winner in the Arkansas Derby, and he came back with a nice win. He's rallied every time. Son of Union Rag should like the distance. Laughing Fox, interesting long shot there for me. Number 12 on the post-position draw here is another Twist of Fate, Matt. He was pegged at 6-1, which I think is a little lower than he will actually go off at. But on the other hand, he's been a nice, consistent horse this year.
He has, yeah, and I think that is a little low. I think he'll float up more than that. I think a little bit of the buzz is gone from another Twist of Fate, who was a buzz horse a little bit after his El Camino Real Derby victory, and since then he's been second in the Sunland Derby to Cutting Humor, who hasn't done too much since then, and then he was second in the Lexington behind Owendale. So I mean, those 2 second place finishes don't give me a lot of confidence. He hasn't seemed to move ahead anymore from that El Camino Real in here, and this is a decent field. I'd like him more, maybe at 15-1, but certainly not at 6-1.
Yeah, he might float up to double digits, and he's a horse to consider at least. Maybe he likes to be alone on the front end more, or maybe he likes a synthetic surface more. But I think both of those races are good enough to at least consider. The Sunland Derby, where he was shuffled back a little bit between horses and then made a nice rally. Cutting Humor didn't run all that bad in the Kentucky Derby. And then in the Lexington, he was bounced around a little bit too. Certainly Owendale was the best horse in the race, but another Twist of Fate held on well, came on well, was still running down the lane. So not a throw out in here, but maybe at twice the odds as his morning line makes more sense. Number 13, the last horse on our list, Matt, is Win, 15-1, kind of a middle of the pack finish in the Kentucky Derby last time.
Yeah, and certainly with a horse like that, the 15-1 morning lines make you want to take more than one look at the horse. He's another one in here that's getting blinkers on. So again, I'm a little curious about that. To me, he's a horse. This is the last chance for win with me. But again, if he is 15-1 or around then, is a horse that I'm going to want to use underneath in the trifecta.
Yeah, for me, it's even more than that. I think he will be in the 15-1 range coming off that Kentucky Derby performance. But hey, I like the Tampa Bay Derby. I like the Pasco before that. I like the Tampa Bay Derby. I like the Bluegrass, where he got by Signal Man despite a bothered trip against a real bias that day. So I like win in this spot. I think the Kentucky Derby, I'm willing to say, well, the slop and the trip was a reason enough for him to only rally to 10th or so. So I'm willing to give him another shot, and I think he's going to be at least 15-1 in here, and that's very intriguing to me. So win will be on my tickets, Matt. All right, so we talked about all 13 horses, Matt. Let's look at how this pace might break down in the Preakness. As we said in the Derby, that's a real key. And I think what we saw in the Derby was a few riders not willing to press the pace. I think because the race was virtually wired other than a disqualification, and the fact that there's a lot of horses in here who like to be on or at least very close to the early lead. Again, I am suspecting a faster pace this time for the mile and 3/16 Preakness.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. And when you look at the past performances and you look at the running style of these horses, it sure looks like there will be a reasonable pace. But I tell you, these days it's hard to know what these jockeys are going to do. I don't know if they don't look at the form anymore like riders used to, but it seems to be almost a standard happening that you look at races and say, oh, yeah, the 3-4 horses are going to go knock heads. And what happens? One horse goes out and everybody grabs. But you have to handicap what's there and hope that you're doing the right thing.
Well said, Matt. And I think there's a lot of horses in here who want to be on or near the lead, maybe 6 or so. So let's run them down right now. We put 4 horses into the speed category, Matt. And maybe we could have put 1 or 2 more. Maybe 1 or 2 of these horses are going to want to sit second or third. But we think the most likely horses to be on or right on the lead is Always Mining, one of the favorites. Bodie Express, the maiden. Market King, the long shot from D. Wayne Lucas, and Warrior's Charge, the up-and-comer from the Brad Cox barn.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like you said, Always Mining, maybe consider a little bit behind them, but be close to them. I think he's the quality speed in there, and if he does that, he can go ahead and take over that lead. Maybe after a half mile or 3/4 as he pleases.
Yeah, we'll see. That would be a dangerous move if true. But the reason I don't worry about as much that happening, Matt, is because of all the good horses right behind too. Because if you look at our list of stalkers, you'll see War of Will, you'll see Improbable, and you'll see another Twist of Fate. 3 horses that probably want to get that move going on the backstretch. Mike Smith is on Improbable. Maybe he has the least speed of the 7 we mentioned, but Mike Smith is seldom one to wait. Another Twist of Fate has won races on the front end. War of Will, as you saw in the Derby, he didn't want to wait too long either. So, I have a feeling this pace will be contentious throughout.
Yeah, and who knows, Brian, that might be a good thing for Improbable, that Mike Smith tends to not to want to wait, and he'll shake that horse up, and he could respond to it.
Absolutely. Matt, I'm going to let you run down the next list, which we called mid-pack, and these are horses that'll actually be just behind the middle of the field, but could sneak up more towards right in the middle of the early pace of the Preakness.
Yeah, with our mid-pack horses, we've got 3 in there. 1 is the long shot, Everfast, and the other 2 are horses that Brian and I already mentioned on the rundown that we like at the odds, and that's Owendale and Signal Man.
Yeah, Owendale showed the ability to really rally last time, but he has been closer to the pace quite a bit before. We'll see what he does this time. Signal Man, like we said, is kind of bounced back and forth, but I would expect him to be at least in the second flight here in the Preakness early. And then, Matt, the most interesting list of all for me, especially from a betting and odds standpoint, is this list of closers we have. Who's on that list?
Yeah, the closers, these are ones, as I mentioned before, at the Preakness. It is not uncommon for closers like this to come running at nice odds and do some good things for the trifecta. We got Bourbon War in there, Laughing Fox, and Win.
3 horses I like, Matt. I like at the odds. I have a feeling the Preakness is going to be won this year from off the pace. Interesting, you mentioned it. 2 of them get blinkers. And Bourbon War and Win. I still think they'll be hoping to rally maybe just a little bit more focus in this big field. All right, so that's our pace projection. Both Matt and I see a pretty strong, good to strong pace in the Preakness, where it kind of opens the door maybe for anyone, but certainly opens the door a little bit for the ralliers. Matt, that's going to bring us right into our top picks. I considered 9 horses for these 4 spots. That's how wide open a race it is. I think it's a good betting race, having said that. But let's run down our top 4.
Yeah, Brian, I felt the same way when I was trying to do my top 4, that there were a lot of horses I could consider in there. And for the most part, I went with horses that have a little bit more in the odds department. I'm probably not going to be making a win bet in this race. But my top pick is Always Mining. I'm going with a local horse. I'm going with his speed. And I think he's got a big chance in here, particularly with this field. My number 2 is Bourbon War. Number 3 is Owendale. So I got 2 of those off the pace horses in there. And number 4, I put Improbable, just because I think he's likely to get a piece of it, but not win it.
Yeah, I have a feeling Improbable is likely to get a piece as well, but not win it. So we're on the same page there. Hey, Matt, I'm happy to say, in a wide open race and a good betting race in my eyes, and a race where I like the chances of a horse to win from off the pace, that all 4 of my top 4 are double digits on the morning line. I'm not sure that all 4 will end up that way, especially Bourbon War, but I'm going ralliers, and you're going to see that in my top 4 here. I have win. I am giving him another chance. I think on a faster track with a little bit better pace, I think he can make some real noise. 13 Hall, Rachel Alexander did it. different way than Win 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 would do it, but I think Win 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 has an interesting chance in the Preakness. I have Bourbon War also at number 2, just like you, 12-1, consistent rallier, fresh, nice horse. Number 3, I'm intrigued by the Oaklawn improving Son of Union Rags from Steve Asmussen's barn, Laughing Fox. He certainly will want to rally as well. And Owendale, that Lexington was good enough. I'm not completely sure he wants a mile 3/16, but I think he's getting better. And Brad Cox's barn is the last 2 years seems always to be a hot barn. So watch out for Owendale. He's my top 4, number 4th pick. All right, Matt, that leads us right into our bets, and we're going to go triples. And Matt, I think you have a smaller trifecta suggested wager than I do. I'm going to let you go first against here.
Okay, and I just, before we give out our triple tickets, I want to point out a couple of historic trends with the Preakness since the year 2000, this century. Only 4 times has a Derby horse not won the Preakness. Now, that's a pretty amazing statistic, but this year also happens to be a year when none of the top 3 Derby horses are in the Preakness. That hasn't happened for many, many, many years, going back before the year 2000. Does that mean that Derby horse is less likely to win the Preakness? I'm not sure. Maybe. The other important stat to point out is that only 4 times since the year 2000 has one of the new shooters, one of the new horses, one of the non-Derby horses, not been part of the trifecta. So history says if you're doing a trifecta, you should put the Derby horses on top and use the new shooters. So keeping that in mind, I give you a trifecta ticket that begins with 3 of the Derby horses. It begins with Improbable, War of Will, and Win Win Win. And then it includes 6 of the new shooters. Always Mining, Bourbon War, Owendale, Another Twist of Fate, Laughing Fox, and Signal Man. And then I'm going to put in the 3rd spot those 3 Derby horses again. But again, folks, and that's only a $36 ticket for $1. And again, folks, that's just an idea. That's just a pattern. If you like the new shooters in here, then put them on top. But I'd include the Derby horses in at least one of the other spots. And you can put the Derby horses in the 2nd spot and the new shooters in the 3rd spot also, if you'd like that. But those historic trends in the Preakness in particular are hard to ignore. Last year I used those with Justify on top and the new shooters and got a bomb in there. And even with Justify in there on top at 40 cents to $1, the trifecta for $1 paid I think it was almost $130.
All right, Matt. So that kind of goes to show what we were saying about the wide open race, because Matt's top picks are not the same as that suggested wager. The suggested wager, Matt's much more leaning on the historical trends of the Preakness. I will say this, it's been 68 years since the top 3 Derby horses did not come back into the Preakness. So I think this is a very different year. In fact, the top 4 horses are not in the Preakness. So I'm more on the new shooter bandwagon in here. I think it's going to be one of those races that bucks the historical trend. And you'll see that both in my top 4 and now my trifecta bets. I'm going with my top 4. All of them double digits on the morning line. That's Win Win Win, Bourbon War, Laughing Fox, Owendale. I'm going to use the 4 of them on top in a pair of $1 trifecta part wheels. I'm going to use the horses that I think are most likely to beat them in the 2nd and 3rd spot. That list would include War of Will, Improbable, Always Mining. I'm also going to throw in Another Twist of Fate and Signal Man, a little bit more odds in there as well. They would be in the 2nd spot in the 1st ticket, and then I'd go back to my top 4, Win Win Win, Bourbon War, Laughing Fox, and Owendale in 3rd. And then my second ticket, I'm just going to reverse second and third. So what I'm saying is I'm going to get one of those rally or long shots to win the race. Not confident that they'll run 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to use the most likely horses to get second or third in there. But I have a feeling they're going to do well. So I'm going to use them first and second, and then first and third in my 2 tickets. They're both $60 tickets. So this bet would cost you $120. But of course, if it hits, it's going to pay much, much more than that, especially if we can get the long shot ralliers that I like into the 1 and 2 positions. All right, Matt, I want to give the folks a winning ticket. These are not all of our bets. These are our suggested wagers a few days out. Matt and I will put a little bit more on different things when we see the odds, when we see the way the track is playing. But we always want to get a wager out early for you. We hope we get this triple because both triples could be really nice on Preakness Day, Matt.
Yeah, that's for sure, Brian. And your ticket were those 50-cent trifectas in your ticket, Brian?
No,
those are dollars.
That's a $1 trifecta. Yeah. 4 by 6 by 3, 4 by 5 by 3, both of them. So, and again, we got a lot of comments on. Well, Brian, you have 4 horses in the third, but I'm using the same 4 horses for third or for second in the 2 tickets that I used for first. So you subtract 1. So mine would be 4 times 5 times 3, or 4 times 3 times 5. $1 ticket. Each ticket $60. And we wish you good luck. We want to hit it, but we want you, all of you watching, to hit it as well. And Matt, that's our show. That's our Preakness preview. We hope you enjoyed it, folks. Let me get a parting shot from you, Matt Shipman.
Hey, Brian, I'm hoping that we have a good trifecta score. I'm hoping that we have dry weather for a Triple Crown race, for a Preakness coming up. I think it's looking like that. It's been raining nonstop here in the Northeast for the last 4 days, but I think it's supposed to be dry. So let's shoot for that, and I'll be happy.
You'll be happy. Hey, Matt and I both want to thank you for watching, tuning in every week to HorseCenter here as we go through the Triple Crown and then beyond later in the season. Also, we need to thank our producer, Brett Workman, the best producer out there. But the best contest site out there, Matt, is Derby Wars. Don't forget about our sponsor, Derby Wars. Check them out if you haven't yet. Subscribe to our YouTube channel here on Horse Racing Nation. We urge you to do that if you haven't done that as well yet. All right, folks. That's it for this week on HorseCenter. Next week, we'll be right here back to talk about the Preakness, look ahead to the Belmont. We'll see you then right here on HorseCenter.